Hi, everybody. I am Michael Bean. I've been an acting teacher for 18 years, just a little while before I'll be able to say 20 years, which seems like a lot of time, even to me. Uh, the This is your free lesson for myfreeactingclass.com today for Wednesday, November the 18th. So now let's take a look. Today we're going to be breaking down a story and talking about some of the things that you can layer in. We're going to be looking at the FYI scene from the audition for one of the main characters for a show called Motherland. So before we read the scene, I'm just going to, before we read the scene, I'm going to pull up the IMDb page and we'll take a look at that. So here we go. So this is Motherland Fort Salem, a TV series, 2020 and ongoing. It's currently casting and shooting in Vancouver. A trio of witches are trained to become powerful weapons for the American military. It's sort of a sci-fi future-ish drama fantasy sci-fi. You can see the style listed right here. We could go and look more at the production and box office, so you can take a peek at what that looks like in my IMDb Pro account. We've got the creator, we've got details, Freeform Studios, etc., etc. We can see all the filmmakers and the companies involved and that kind of thing. ABC, Spark, Canada TV, Freeform, US. Right, so the whole bunch of different people involved in this because it's a TV series, so there's a lot of money involved. And so anytime the more money there is, the more people that are going to be involved with this. So if we wanted to get a better sense of the show, and if you were auditioning for this, you would have also gotten the breakdown, which I believe I've got that here on the script. No, I don't. So you would get a story breakdown, which essentially says something to the effect of alternate future, where instead of being persecuted in Salem, witches volunteered for the American military, and now military is basically all witches. So it's this sort of alternate future where instead of high-tech equipment, it's all like witchy powers. And so you've got these three young women who are all training in basic training for their witchy powers. So let's watch the official trailer that's posted here on IMDb. I know it gets a little bit blotchy when I'm sharing, so hopefully this will make some sense while watching it.
You are called to greatness. All of you will serve as soldiers of the United States Army. Fort Salem is a witch's place. Soldier couldn't ask for better sisters. Make me proud. Do you have any idea what's on the line here? Every attack is worse than the last. You have no idea how powerful you are.
So there you go. Classic sci-fi. It gives you a sense of the tone. It gives you a sense of the style. It has a little bit of that, so stripped down flavor that I've talked about with CW shows. Where like people are very pretty and things are very like everything has this quality of like, this is very important. This is very important. This is very important. So that's their subtext underneath everything that's happening. And so with that in mind, let me see of the three characters in the scene, who's doing the most talking. Okay, it's mostly Tally and Abigail. So Eve, let's have you read Tally. And Lori, you're going to read Abigail, and I'll put the scene in front of you in just a moment. And then I'll read the character of Rael, and I'll read the stage direction, and then we'll talk about, if you were preparing this scene, how you might want to approach breaking it down. Okay, these are the Rael sides. Interior suite, Ash Barracks, wee hours. So if you were getting this audition, you would already have the context. It says FYI only. Now, there is no accepted, this is always how casting directors will mark up an audition script. Sometimes they will put the FYI only very nicely like this, with an arrow that sort of points you past it. And sometimes they'll just scrawl FYI, in a Sharpie marker, and sometimes they will just put big X's through the couple of pages, but include them anyway. So you have to go, oh, well, they've X'd out, but they've included the pages, so it must be important to read. The girls are seated around a candle in the middle of the room. Tally holds a navy blue rose. As she speaks, she plucks petals and throws them into the candle flame, where they puff into smoke.
My mother lost our 4 sisters to combat. When she turned 18, they gave her a dispensation. The army said our line had become unduly depleted.
That word is unduly. I know the language is sort of strangely formal because you're in like sci-fi fantasy land.
Unduly depleted. She reopened the case to get one for me, and then I ruined her life by coming. Nice to meet you guys. I'll be here for the next 45 years.
And Lori, this is you. Lori, I was getting some feedback on your mic before, so I muted you. You're just going to need to unmute one of your devices.
I unmuted. Sorry. Thank you. Can you hear me now?
I can, yes.
Yay, thank you. You did the right thing. We need everybody for what's coming.
Tally passes Abigail the rose.
Oh, who have you lost?
Abigail plucks petals too and tosses them into the flame.
Aunts, so many cousins. Both grandmothers died in their 50s, in combat in really terrible ways. One in the air when her salva ran out, the other rotting in a tent crawling with plague rats. What about you, Rael?
Rael takes the rose from Abigail and holds the entire thing over the candle flame, where it bursts into a massive flame that scorches the ceiling. My mom died in a firefight in Liberia last year on a beach. The sand turned to glass around her, had to crack her out. What was left? All we got back were tags. When Rael finishes speaking, the rose crumbles to black dust.
My mom was stationed in Greenville last spring. Rough tour.
Something about this piece of information catches in Rael's psyche.
She died an honorable death.
I think my mom was tired when she died and scared and used up. I think she wanted to come home. Tally grabs Rael's hand first, then Abigail, still feeling schooled and stung by Rael's retort. They speak as one.
For those who
Dwell
dwell
in the earth, for those
who gave their
lives, for those we remember.
Right, and particularly for this, both of you, of course, picked up, that the intention is to speak it together. If you were taping this via Zoom, then you can see that Zoom doesn't do great with overlapping voices. And so you would want to make sure that your voice was highlighted, by asking the other person to say, like, to whisper it. And that might work depending on sort of what both people's microphones were like, but it's the kind of thing that you want to practice sort of before you tape it, just as a technical thing. Okay, so we have a sense of the tone of the show. We've taken a look at the script for the show. Now, let me pull up the story questions, and we can look at those. And these I'm going to kind of blitz through so that we're not spending a ton of time on any one of the questions, because then I want to go and look at how that would apply in the scene and talk a little bit in a little bit more specific way about inner imagery and the ways that you can kind of land that in a script. So here are the 10 questions for story that I've been using for a couple of months here. And I really should, actually I'm gonna make a note of that right now. I really should have this file available on the My Free Acting class website. So story questions to, you see, okay, that's just me talking out loud. So I'll make sure that there's a link, where in the resources link on the website, just so that it's really easy to find this if it's useful for you, and if you want to look at it again. There's some other great resources that be good to go back to. And so the top level note that I think is always useful to hit is there's no right or wrong in acting, only more or less effective. I've been reading a book by Brene Brown recently, Dr. Brene Brown. She's a doctor of social work based out of the University of Houston in Texas, and her work's become a big deal lately. She talks about vulnerability a lot. And vulnerability is, I think, such a clear description of what we want as actors. That's what we want to be able to offer to the camera and bring to those characters, is like being emotionally exposed, taking risks, not being sure what's happening. And that textbook definition of vulnerability, which is uncertainty, risk, and emotional exposure, right? Uncertainty is a part of it. And so certainty is a way to reduce anxiety, but I don't think that it makes for the best acting. Right? What we want is for you to be inside of it, just like a person is in their life. And of course, we have solids, around us and relationships and things we're dealing with, but I don't think you can remove uncertainty at all. So style, which we looked at, the writer's story, so we would give our one sentence version of how we understand the story breakdown. My story, always recommend starting with this. So if you are playing Tally, Eve, or if Laura, you're playing Abigail, then you're like, okay, what is my story? What is Tally's story? And you would look at the breakdown and you would just read over the script and you would get your own sense of it. So that exercise that we did where I'm reading the stage direction out loud and we're essentially reading all of the lines out loud. That's what I do with my scripts when I get them. It's very effective. It was first recommended to me by casting director Stuart Akins. If you scroll back far enough in the YouTube page, you'll see a series of 10 lessons. Basically, it's 2 hours of casting director Stuart Akins talking that he let me video and then post to YouTube a number of years ago. And he was the first one who I heard recommend, like when you first get the script, read everything on the page out loud to yourself a couple of times. I always do that with my scripts because it slows you down. It makes it more likely that you'll notice what are the other people saying to you, what's happening in the stage direction. So the arc, and this is something that Eve highlighted yesterday, is how does the character change over the course of the script? How does the story change, but particularly how does your character's story change? Right, it starts here and it ends there. It doesn't have to be a huge change, because even a small change, externally can still feel like a big deal to the character. But building that in, likely to make your story more compelling. Especially with smaller scripts, one of the things that I see actors getting a lot out of is going, okay, how does my character change? Right? Even, and this is something I was saying to Eve before we started recording, that even with a single line, you can bring an arc. You'd be like, okay, how can I start as far away from what's happening as possible? So that when I discover what makes me want to say this one line of dialogue, it is a change for my character. Descriptive words for me, and that's 3 or more single word adjectives that describe who the character thinks of themselves as. So not like she's such a jerk, but like I'm forceful and confident, right? So always internal language. Descriptive words for the other, again, from your character's perspective, not from the top-down, godlike perspective of everybody, but from that character. If you are playing Abigail, what are Abigail's words to describe Rael? What are Abigail's words to describe Tally? And I would say that based on what's in the text, in this scene, Abigail learns some things about Rael that maybe even change her opinion. So some of those you can even write into the script, like this is the moment where I decide that Rael is confrontational, or subversive, or right, because she's got this thing about, I think my mom was ready to come home. The script relationship, okay, they are a unit, in this new Army force. Personalization, What is your personal life that helps you empathize with the feelings behind the experience? And then what do I want? And the objective phrase. So if you are, Abigail, I want my unit to be the most successful. Or I want to be the most successful. And so in this scene, what do I want? Do I want to push or inspire people? If you're Rael, maybe you're like, I want to get out of here. I don't want to be here. It could be something as simple as that, where you would start, but then you'd want to follow it through, because a lot of times I'll get actors pick objectives like, I don't care, or I don't want to be here. And then I usually, as the teacher, have to ask, okay, let's follow that and go to, what do you have to make the other person do or feel so that you'll get what you want? Right. So good. So you don't want to be here. Great. So what do you want Abigail or Tally to feel? You want them to feel bad, about being here. Like you want them to hate it. Like, I want them to hate it like I do. Okay, maybe that's what I want. Like, guys, this sucks. Like, we've lost people. This place is horrible. I can't believe that we're doing this. Maybe. And then I would put that into a short objective phrase. So just a couple of words. So if I'm playing Rael, what do I want? I want to get out of here, or I want, and in this scene, what I want is to get Abigail and Tally, to dislike the army as much as I do. And so my objective phrase is like, this sucks, or it might be as simple as that. I would try a couple of different things. I just try out loud, this sucks. Maybe it's not quite charged enough. I hate it here. Maybe I'd play with something like that. Play with something until it fired me up, and then I'd look for a couple of different options. Because maybe it's not, I hate it here. Maybe it's, what are we doing? And objective phrase is something that is not, strictly speaking, rational. It's really just like, I've got my objective. My objective is rational. I'm going to put it into clear language. Here's what I want the other person to do or feel. Then I'm going to follow that into like a couple of words that when I say them, brings up that feeling. And I've seen all sorts of like strange objective phrases be helpful for people. Now I want to go back and look at the script and then talk a little bit about inner imagery, which is sort of a next level of personalization. It's not in the story questions, because my story questions handout is intended to be something that you can run through in your head in 5 minutes in the car as you drive to the audition if you need to. Like, I wonder, like, did I answer all those questions? What are my 3 adjectives to describe me? What are my 3 adjectives? Oh yeah, that does add a layer of meaning to the way that I would normally prepare the scene. That's what I want. I want something that is effective and simple, and not one more thing that actors can flog themselves about not having done enough, or having done perfectly, or having spent countless hours on. I just want to know, like, what's effective, like what helps us get you there, what helps you feel more of what the character is feeling, what helps you tell the story. And so if we're going to go back and look at this Motherland script, right, one of the reasons this is a useful script to look at is because it is so emotionally charged, right? Like, they're talking about losses in their life. They're talking about grief. This is definitely something you understand. So Eve, if you're playing Tally, you look at this. My mom lost 4 sisters to combat. When she turned 18, they gave her a dispensation. You probably have to look up the word dispensation, which to find out that means that she wasn't allowed to be, or she was allowed to not join the army, right? So then, once you understand this line, then you want to go in and go, what does each one of these mean to me? Because the risk is, and I see this from actors all the time, and I see it myself when I'm in my own work, if I'm recording an early practice, that there'll be sort of an emotional tone, even if it's right, but it's like a chunk. So it's like, my mom lost 4 sisters to combat. When she turned 18, they gave her a dispensation. The army said our line had become unduly depleted. She reopened the case to get one for me. Blah, 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 right? And it all kind of like blurs together. And so what we want is, my mom lost 4 sisters to combat. What does that mean to me personally? And often what I'll do is, over here on the side, I will take a pen and paper. I'll take a pen and I'll just start writing things down. I'll be like, okay, so if this is the way that I'm using this for myself currently, there is no right way to do it. The whole idea is, You pick something specific that is a personalization, something that helps you make meaning or find imagery for this that is personally affective. So if it helps you, so maybe I'm going to think about, sisters, right? I'm going to think about my Aunt Nancy, right? Because I really like her, and so if I imagine that she's dead, then that helps me like empathize for my mom, like, man, my poor mom. So then it's my mom lost 4 sisters to combat, and I knew some of them, and they were great people, and now they're dead. And then dispensation. Okay, so then, and this is what I'm doing. Again, it's not the right way. I'll use a single keyword just to help hold on to the image for myself, when I'm making my little notes on the side. And often, if you were to look at some of my scripts, you would see that there are lots of little, crossed out scribbles. Actually, let me show you. All right, so this is a scene that I've been working on for my own practice for a couple of weeks, and there's lots of little arrows and scribbles, and is this the thing or is that the thing? Right, that we're not trying for perfect. We're trying for what makes me feel, and then can I layer that in also? Can I layer those images in as I rehearse, as I run over it? Can I remember what dispensation means to me? And if and so dispensation, if we're looking at, so we go dispensation. It could be something as simple as chores. Like she didn't have to do chores, but it could also be something as simple. It could be something more complex. Like I'm trying to think, what's emotionally affective, for me, Michael Bean. They give her dispensation. She retired, right? And my mom is actually retired. So, right. So then it turns into, my mom lost 4 sisters to combat. When she turned 18, they gave her a dispensation. And what I'm really thinking, is like when she turned 65, she stopped teaching. And does that make sense for the line? No. But does it matter? No. What matters is that it means something to me, because that's all that people are going to hear. Right? People are going to see the container they're going to see my face. They're going to hear the words that I'm saying. What I make it mean to myself, as long as it fits the story, it can literally be anything. It can be unicorns pooping rainbows. It can be anything that you can like vividly imagine that makes you feel, that connects it with your life and imagination. And so give yourself more permission as you're exploring those things, but you really can go line by line and add that next level of detail. And especially now, I think in the world of self-tapes, where instead of seeing 10 people for the audition, they are possibly seeing 50 self-tapes. That my hope is that over time, actors who put in that extra level of detail are going to see a strong competitive advantage, right? Like the competitive advantage, I think even now is, getting the technical things down, because lots of people are still struggling with the technical. But what we're going to see with self-tapes is, as that equalizes and everybody's like, okay, they've got a clean background, they've got the highlight, they've got all of those things, then we're going to see the things that we've always seen, which is that extra level of detail, and particularly in the first couple of lines. Because in those first couple of lines, they're going to be like, well, this Michael Bean guy doesn't quite look like but that's really interesting what he's doing. I do want to watch the rest of that. And that's the hope, right? You cannot control whether or not your face fits what they've got in their mind. Right, you can do some wardrobe, like you can, if you're a lady and you have like makeup skills, you can make some choices, as long as they're not like too overt about sort of how you tell that story. Like with me, I'm often like, what tie am I going to wear that's going to like help like give us just a little sense of who the character is right in that first moment, right? Like, and those are meaningful, but you also can't control if they're like, yeah, I'm not sure, we were picturing a bald guy. What I can try and do is I can try and layer in enough meaningful story for myself into each one of those lines. They're like, that before they have the chance to pause it, they're like, yeah, not thinking about, where's he going with that? And that's what I hope for with my auditions, and that's what I hope for with you. So maybe that tool that I offered today, is one more little step in that direction. Okay, it's 4:30. I've got to go pick up a small person who I don't want to be waiting in the rain after school. And tomorrow we have Annalise Tilling and Aaron Rowley, casting directors, joining us from 4 to 4:30. So please come if you can. And
Thank you, Michael.
my pleasure. Thanks for
Thank you.
being brave and participating today, and I'll see y'all soon.
Thank you. Bye.